Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Student Forum for the winter term 2021. Thank you so much for coming today, and thank you for spending your time with us. As we begin, I want to start with a couple of housekeeping issues. First of all, we would love to have your questions, and I do have a question that came in prior to this from a student who couldn't attend, so we'll make sure that we answer that and put it out to our panelists. And the other is that if you would like to enter a question in the Q&A section, we will get to as many of those and possibly all of them as we go along. So do keep in mind that the question and answer is not anonymous. Okay, so again, welcome. As people filter in, I'm just going to kind of slowly introduce us. My name is Dr. Mindy Dew, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Student Affairs. And today I am joined by some fabulous panelists. And what I'm going to do is just have each panelist, I'll call on you, and you'll unmute yourself and you'll put your video on, and you'll say who you are and what you do, and then we'll go on to the next person. So we'll begin with Provost Paul Jarrell.
Thanks, Mindy. Good afternoon, everybody. As Mindy said, my name is Paul Gerald. I am the Provost and Executive Vice President. Basically, my areas of responsibility are serving as an executive leadership for everything academic and student affairs. So anything that you all interact with Lane, I have kind of under my executive level of responsibility. So it's good seeing you all.
Thank you, Provost Gerald. Next, I would like to introduce the president of the Aslccg, your president, Amber Coleman.
Thank you, Mindy. Right. Hello, everyone. As Mindy said, my name is Amber Coleman. I use pronouns she, her. I am the student body president of the Aslccg. I do have some more stuff to talk about later today, but I will just keep this introduction. So thank you for letting me be here, Mindy.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Next is Dawn Barth with Risk Management. Dawn?
Thanks, Mindy. Hello to anyone who's out there. We're excited to have you here. We love seeing our Titans, whether you're on campus or off, so it's exciting to have you here. My job for the college in non-COVID times is I'm the risk manager, and I currently am serving as the COVID compliance officer and do a lot of work revolving in the COVID world right now to try to keep us all safe. So I'm excited to be here and answer any questions you might have.
Fantastic. Let's see, Don Whiting. And Don is the Associate Dean for Enrollment Services and our Registrar. Don?
That's right. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Mindy. That's right. I am the Associate Dean for Enrollment Services and Registrar, and my areas are many, but you probably are most familiar with the services that were provided and which are now the virtual Building 1, so our student services building. So that's where my area is, and we do mostly student records and registration.
Thank you very much. And Zach Evans. Zach Evans is our budget director. Zach?
Thank you. Yes, as Mindy said, I'm the director of budget and resource planning for the college, and kind of in my area of responsibilities is the college budget development cycle, as well as annual budget monitoring and reporting. So I'm looking forward to any college budget questions that you might have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And helping us behind the scenes today, our project coordinator, Bliss Newton, Randy Painter with Media Services, and Terry Holloway with Media Services as well. So thank you both and all three of you for your help today. We may not see them, we may not hear them, but this can't happen at all without them. So just as a reminder, please, as you're coming in, know that you can ask questions. They're not anonymous. Just put it up in the Q&A, and I will either have them answered live during this, or we will send you an email afterwards. Now, some of the topics we're going to talk about today are tuition. We'll talk about fees. We'll talk about commencement. We can talk about scholarships, and we can talk about the CARES Act. We can talk about important information coming out of the student government, and we will talk about ideas about reopening. So, and in fact, the first thing I would like to talk about, I'm going to kick it right over to Provost Gerald. We do have a question that was forwarded in. This is from Tara Shope, and she says, what is the plan to return to in-person classes in the fall if we only have partial vaccination of staff and students? At the rate Oregon and Lane County are vaccinating and receiving doses, reaching the point of herd immunity seems unlikely. What is your justification and plan for resuming in-person classes for fall term 2021? Thanks for your question.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the question. And certainly something everybody is curious about as we've been navigating through this. Just to kind of put it in perspective, in fall of 2019, so pre-pandemic, if you looked at our offerings, we were about 25% online and remote and about 75% in person. As all of you know, because you are living through it, when the pandemic hit us, we had to move almost all of our classes online, and we did so over a period of a few weeks last spring, so that this fall, if you were to look at fall 20, we were about 90% remote and online and only about 10% in person, so quite a big difference. And I would say that, you know, we've always looked at this from the standpoint of safety. We could have had probably situations where we had more people on campus, but we really have been trying to mitigate that risk of infection by delivering services and classes as remote as we can. Just to kind of put it in perspective, throughout all of this COVID, I think since June, since we started keeping track, we have only had 53 either employees or students that we are aware of, at any rate, that have tested positive, and the majority of those weren't even in any in-person setting. So we've done a really good job about putting people's safety first. It does look like there will be greater access to vaccinations, greater sense of protection and safety among our staff and students as we move into fall. So fall term doesn't start for us until the end of September. So there is a good likelihood that we may have the majority of our folks vaccinated at that point in time, and we will have a greater sense of security. Now, we're under guidelines. We have to operate by Oregon Health Authority and the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, as well as any executive orders from the governor. But our goal really for fall is to think of fall as that transition period where we are safer, we can have more in-person activity without increasing risk. We probably still will be socially distancing and wearing masks to protect everybody's health and lower again the risk of transmission. And my goal would be to be somewhere in between what we were pre-pandemic and during the pandemic. I would love to have a situation where we have opportunities for students, both for instruction and services, that is about 50-50, right? Where you have the option where if you really need to take that math class and you really need to have it in person, we're going to try to accommodate that, again, within the guidelines that are set forth with us. If you want to, have some remote learning or online courses in accounting, again, we're going to try to make that happen. So our goal is options and flexibility, having more in-person options for students where it makes sense. But knowing that going into this, plans could always change, as you all know, overnight, and they frequently do. So we'll always be monitoring that and keep everybody's health and safety at the forefront. So that's kind of our plan.
Okay, thank you very much. So actually, on the heels of that, I would like to call on Dawn Barth and to sort of augment and flesh out what Provost Jarrell is saying.
Yeah, I think, Paul did a great job talking about where we are, and the challenges right now is that there are just so many unknowns. And I think that was mentioned in that initial question. And, one thing that I can say is that the vaccine is coming in much more quickly, and we are getting a lot more people vaccinated more quickly in Lane County. We did just open up as we've been able to do a lot of vaccinations actually on our campus not for necessarily our students or our faculty, because we still are working with the county and we are vaccinating those folks as their groups come up. So we have done some vaccinations for healthcare responders. We have done some vaccinations for K through 12 teachers, and we've been developing that partnership. And we are in meetings to work on making sure that we are covered when the time comes that we can vaccinate our students and our faculty and our employees. So, those plans we are working forward so that everything will be in place when we do get to that point. Sometimes people ask me, is it going to be required? Are we going to be required to have a vaccine in order to be on campus? And at this point, that is not an option. That isn't anything that would come from us. If anything, that would be something that came down to us from the Higher Education Commission. But at this point, there is no plan to make a vaccine mandatory to be able to be on campus. So I'm excited for the direction that we're going. I'm excited about the planning that is taking place. And I do want people to know that we are forward thinking. We're not just trying to get through day to day. We are trying to make things better for our future.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dawn. I appreciate it. Now, I would like to ask President Amber Coleman of the Aslccg. She had some information she wanted to deliver, and I know that student government has been very active this year, and I think she kind of wants to check in with you too. So, Amber?
Thank you, Mindy. Sorry, it took a second to come off there. All right, so we have quite a few things going on right now in the student government, but primarily I wanted to bring to the attention of everyone the SG elections. So every year the student government has elections for their elected positions. We are comprised in the SG of 10 elected positions. We have 8 senators and 2 executives. If you are interested in running for one of these positions, there are a few important dates to be aware of. So March 23rd through April 17th, we have our candidate applications open, so you can apply to be a candidate in the upcoming elections. And then we have voting opening up on May 27th through 29th, and then the elections will be announced on May 30th. Between then, we're going to have some campaigning and some virtual debates. If you need any information on any of those things, you can go to our SG website. And we actually have an elections page that has all of these election rules and dates laid out. There are also other pages on our SG website that has a lot of information about what we're doing currently in the student government. Another thing I wanted to let everybody know about is we are holding bi-weekly Senate meetings every other Thursday at 4 p.m. Via Zoom. If you would like to attend any of these meetings, the link for that is also on our website. You can come in. This is a good time to be able to talk to your representatives and be able to find out what the student government has going on currently. Okay, there are 2 last things that I wanted to bring to the attention of the students, and that is that registration is now open for spring term. So if you haven't registered yet, now would be a really good time to do so. And lastly, scholarships are due on March 2nd. So if you need to get your scholarships in, just remember to get those going. And if you need any help with that, we do have a lot of resources. I know we have someone speaking about resources today, so I won't go into that. But if you have any questions, please feel free to check out our student government website or email me at president@mylanecc.edu, and I will also drop that in the chat. All right, thank you for your time. Thank you, Mindy.
Thank you so much, Amber. And this is a really great time to touch base with her, ask her questions as well. Like I said, the Q&A is open and we would love to hear from you. I don't think I'll go next. I have a couple of pieces of information that might be kind of helpful for you as students. And it's also an accountability piece. I think that it's really important, since I'm the person that, I'm the one that bothers you with all of the emails. So since I am that person, I think that it would be a good idea to hear a couple of things from me. Last year, we received the first round of CARES Act funding. And the CARES Act was federally funded, and it was for students who had qualified for financial aid, and it was $1.5 million. We did the disbursement last spring, and then we did a second disbursement over the summer term for those who needed help during the summer. We have received CARES Act 2 funding, and there is no need to apply for that. There's no need to apply for that. It'll be done again in a block format. So if you qualified for financial aid and there are a couple of other qualifiers in there, then you will receive notification. And however you receive your financial aid disbursement, that's how you will receive the CARES Act funding. That is entirely dependent, the amount of that is entirely dependent upon how many students qualified for financial aid versus how much we received from the CARES Act funding. So again, it's another $1.5 million. There is other funding available. We have what's called GEAR funding. GEAR is the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, and that was $375,000, of which $25,000 was reserved, and so $350,000. We do have, and I'm going to drop this right into the chat real quick here. We have a way that you can apply for this. This is for students specifically who did not qualify for financial aid. You do not have to be low income. It can just be like, hey, I didn't qualify, but I am impacted by the pandemic. You always want to check yes on that one. So we received our first round of applications, and we just dispersed about $100,000 of that money last week. So we do have about $250,000 left. So just click on the link that I put in the chat and apply for that as soon as possible. It is available in both English and Spanish. Okay, the next thing that you may want to know is about commencement. Commencement last year was entirely virtual, and it was the first time we'd done that, and it was wonderful to be able to connect with students, at least in some way. And so I think this year we're going to try and do something a little bit more. We will do our virtual commencement, I would say as usual, but I don't think there's anything usual about this last year. It'll be a year and a half by the time we get there. It feels like 5 years. Anyway, so we will do our regular commencement virtually, again with Terry and Randy. Thank you guys so much, so much, and with the whole committee. But we're looking at doing a possible, again, I'm not going to promise anything until I get, the okay for sure and it gets closer, but we're looking at possibly doing a drive-through commencement as well, where you can, if you're graduating, put your family in the car, you drive on up, we give you a bag of swag, and the president comes over and waves with you, or maybe even Paul Jarrell. I'll be there. I'll probably just be wearing a hat and directing traffic. Drive up, get a picture with Ty the Titan, possibly with the president, get your diploma, and then party on out of there. So I am very excited about that. I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to do it. A lot of it depends on where our county is, where our vaccines are, where our college is, and see how we are faring at that time. So cross your fingers for us. And if you have any input on that, of what you would like to see, just let us know. Let us know. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the Aslccg website. Just a second here. And Amber asked if I would do this. They are, there we go. And it should be, we should mention, I'm going to keep mentioning this because we need to have fantastic officers for next year. When you become, if you become part of student government, there's often a tuition stipend that goes with that. So please keep that in mind. If you've ever been civic minded, we would love to have you. And if you want more information, just talk to President Amber Coleman. All right, so next up on my list is a couple of more resources. A lot of you are going to be looking for advising at this time, because I know that spring is opening up and we're ready to go. So I'm going to pop in a link for advising just right into the chat there. You should be able to see that. Please do contact your advisor. There's going to be, I'm sure that there's lots of confusion, like what is the difference between online and remote? What is this time, no time, meets virtual? And your advisors can help you with that, but also our registrar, Don Whiting, can help you. So if you had some just kind of general questions, you might want to try this link, and that's Enrollment Management. So if you would like to talk to somebody kind of live, what I would do is go to the shed, which is the student help desk, and I'll give you that link. And in that link is a link to live online help. So we have a student support hub that I think is really fantastic, and you can talk to a real person. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a moment. And I also am just going to say that I hope you're taking care of yourselves. We've been worried about you, students. We have missed you. I'm sure everybody on this panel is going, yes, we've missed you. We've missed seeing you in person. And so the next person we're going to do, oh, and there are a couple of questions in the chat or in the question and answer about the GEAR application says it's no longer accepting responses. Is that a mistake? No, it should be accepting responses, and I'll get that open. I'll make sure that that is accepting them by the end of the day today. And the other one says GEAR grant deadline passed on 2/12. It's just a deadline, it's for priority. So you will still be able to apply for that. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to Provost Paul Jarrell. And Paul, I know one of the big things on students' minds is tuition.
Right.
The world is crazy, and they're probably the big question after me yammering on is what happens next.
Well, let's see if I can get some insight to that. Let me share my screen here, if you don't mind, Mindy. Can you all see this here? Let me slideshow. There, I'm assuming you're seeing that. If I don't hear otherwise, we'll do that. So basically, thank you. I wanted to have a little bit of time to introduce a topic, and then maybe we'll provide a little bit more opportunities for discussion around this a little bit later on. But I did want to talk a little bit about what are some, if I can figure this out here, what are some proposed, some perceived and real barriers, and especially around financial barriers for student success. And I want to talk a little bit about, in particular, the cost of attendance, tell you a little bit about what our budget issues are in terms of how we develop a budget and how we try we are required by state law to balance a budget. So I want to talk a little bit about that strategy as well, and then look at tuition and talk a little bit about tuition increases and a history of tuition increases that we have had here for that. To kind of give you a sense of what we look at when we get into these questions about this is we ask the question is what is a student budget, right? A typical student budget. And this is what's used to determine financial aid eligibility and things like that. You'll see two different numbers here. On the left, I've got a student budget of a little over 20,000. And on the right, you'll notice that I've got a budget of 19,200. They're calculated slightly differently. The one on the left with the 20,000 is in reference to a calculation that the state does based upon the information that we provide to them. It's a little bit different than the one we use, but basically they're close. So if you can see the student budget, this is how much it would cost to go to school for a year, to live in the Eugene Springfield area, and to pay your tuition fees and to have, you know, a room and board and all of that. And you can see it's been increasing a little bit each year. There were a couple years where there were greater increases, and these greater increases for the most part are really due to increases in the cost of housing for the most part. You can see here what these lines show. This is what percentage of the student budget goes to different things. And we break it down into rough categories. You can see more than half of a student budget that we put together goes toward room and board, okay? There is about, and that's been anywhere between 50 and 55% of the total budget goes toward just, I guess, living and eating in the Eugene Springfield area. About 25% of it, and this has remained relatively stable, this yellow line here is tuition. About 25% of the total student budget, it's varied between 25 and 27%, goes to tuition and fees. The green is transportation and miscellaneous. Transportation costs of transportation have been going down over the years. And then lastly, books and supplies. And I will say that those also are going down because we have a really active effort here at Lane around what are called open educational resources and really trying to have low cost or no cost options for courses for students. And many of you have probably experienced those. And when you look in the schedule, you can see a list of those that we have there for you. If you're curious about where Lane sits relative to the rest of the community colleges, this graph shows all the community colleges. You can see there we are about the 7th out of 17 community colleges. We're the 7th least expensive, I guess is the best way to put it, meaning that there are 10 of them that their cost of attendance is greater than ours. And just for comparison, so you can see value, both I think that you're getting in instruction, but also financially, the community college budget tends to be about a third less than what you would be paying at Oregon State or University of Oregon, or what you, if you plan on transferring, this is, you know, what your budget would be once you transfer. So I wanted to mention, talked a little bit about your budget, the student budget. Let me talk just really briefly about the college budget and how we approach this. You can see that we are required to balance a budget. This is our budget projection for next year, and we are in the middle of a budget development season for next year. And one of the colors we typically don't like to see on here is red. But what you can see is that number at the bottom, about $6 million in the red, means that our expected revenue is going to be about $6 million less than our expected expenses. And so we're in that kind of budget balancing phase right now. One of the ways, if you look at the revenue, we have state and local revenue, we have tuition and fees, and we have other revenue that we might transfer in. These might be sale of equipment or other kinds of things, one-time kind of monies that might come in on a given day. And then you can see most of our expenses are in people. About 80% or more of our expenses are in personnel. These are teachers, these are our advisors, these are counselors, these are facilities people. This is just people to help us help you get an education. So this is where we start the budget balancing conversation. And so we look at how can we cut expenses, how can we increase revenue? And one of the revenue levers, if you will, is tuition and fee increases. And I'll show you here in a minute, we try to be really conscientious of that and the impact that that has on students. But that is one of our ways of balancing a budget, is tuition and fee increases or new enrollments, right? If we can get more enrollments. As you might be aware, because of the pandemic, and this is leading to one of our budget issues, we have had a significant drop in enrollment because a lot of students are realizing this is an environment that I have a difficult time learning in. So A, I'm not going to take as many classes as maybe I ordinarily would have, or B, I'm going to decide to wait to come back to school. I hate that latter one because we know the longer students wait to come back to school, the harder it is to come back when you're ready to come back. And then expenditure containment, I mean, we can reduce programs and services that we offer for students, we can reduce personnel, or we can reduce the expense around materials. And that's a harder one because that means we're going to have to cut things that we're doing. We're going to have to cut what we do. So if I can focus just a minute, and if there are any questions specifically about the budget, Zach is far more experienced in the budget world than I am, and can probably answer any specific questions you might have. I'm a biologist by training, so I'm good with numbers, but not money. So let's think about tuition. I'm not going to read this to you, but the board has a policy, and I encourage you, if you're interested, to go look at it. It's BP 725 about tuition. The take-home message is this. Our Board of Education, who governs our operation, they recognize the impact that large tuition increases have on a student from year to year. So they've made a conscious effort over the years to really try to minimize any single year impact on a student. You'll hear stories about, you know, oh, this four-year school or that four-year school, oh, they raised tuition by 15%. We've been really good about never doing that. If you look over the past 5 years, we have averaged only a 4% increase in tuition each year. And just this past year, tuition was raised 2.5%. So we have been very conscious of the impact that tuition increases, especially large tuition increases, have on students, and trying to spread that out, if you will, over a longer period of time so that we don't have these large, really increases in tuition at any given point in time. One of the things that we can base that increase on is this thing called HEPI. As you all know, expenses for lots of things go up each year. It has to do with inflation, right? And there is this inflation index that's linked to doing business at a college, and it's called HEPI, Higher Education Price Index. And I've listed there for you the kind of things that it's based upon. But each year they put out a % increase that they think inflation should be with HEPI. For this year, the % increase would be right around 2%, 1.9%. So that would mean that if we're just going to keep up with inflation, assuming everything else is equal, that tuition increases should be about 1.9% to keep pace with inflation. And that would be for us about a $2.50 increase per credit. Now, I have to tell you, though, the thing that assumes is that everything else, our funding, our revenue from everywhere else stays the same, right? To do business the same, meaning that we would get the same revenue from the state to just maintain status quo. Well, I'll tell you right now, the early budget information that we're getting from the state shows that we're not going to be getting what we say we need to just maintain status quo. We're going to be getting about 9% less in revenue from the state if things go forward the way they are. So not only are we looking at inflation that we have to keep up with this HEPI, right? We're looking at a reduction in funding from the state that we're going to have to figure out a way to remedy, either by cutting proportionally that much or by trying to find other ways to increase revenue to offset that. And again, we're always lobbying with the state to get the funding that we need so we don't have to pass that on to you. But I wanted to that's context. I wanted to pose a few questions for you all to think about, and I'll let you know ways that we're going to try to get this information back from you in a timely manner. One, I'm curious, I know that there's an impact, but I'm curious from, honestly, what would you feel would be the impact, the true impact to you and your ability to progress with your studies at Lane if there was a 1.9% tuition increase? Again, that's a $2.50 per credit. So if you're a student taking 10 credits, that's an extra $25 per term for you to continue your education, right? Again, status quo. The other question I would have, knowing that our revenue from the state is likely to be decreased, if we had to pass more of that on to students and share, right, some more revenue, some cost expenses, cutting expenses if we can, what then would be the impact if we had a $5 tuition increase for you? So again, if you were taking 10 credits per term, that's $50 per term in addition. And again, your personal financial situations, your financial aid implications and whatever. So these are things that I want to think about and to try to solicit from you. What are the unintended consequences? The last thing we want to do is put another barrier in front of you to be able to continue your studies. So we want to be mindful of that. And then I'm also curious, I'm open to ideas from students and suggestions about how could we, what are some ways to budget to balance the budget that you might think of that might be beneficial. So those are the kinds of things that I wanted to start this conversation around, knowing that there is an impact to you. I want to try to ferret out how significant that impact is. And maybe then if we know what that is, there are other things we can do to help mitigate that impact on you as well. So I'm open for discussion and feedback. I don't know that we have a lot of time to do that today. I'll let Mindy decide whether we have questions or not, but I'm in the middle of activating a blog for you, and we'll make sure we get this address out to you. But it's going to be a blog that's blogs.lanecc.edu /financial barriers. We'll get that active, and then that'll be a way for you to be able to provide some comments for us that we can take into account as we think about these moving forward more fully. So I thank you for the opportunity to begin this subject and talk about this subject. It's one we don't really like to talk about because we know there is an impact, but I just wanted to be as transparent as we can about what some of the needs are that are out there.
Thank you, Provost Gerald. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We have questions for you. Okay. And by the way, I do appreciate that you're coming and giving good information and facts. It's so much better than rumors or just angry phone calls later. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. So I do have a couple of questions for you. Tara Shope, thank you for your questions, Tara. I really appreciate it. She says, or they say, does tuition increases include the fee increases as well?
So the value, so the tuition, no, they're separate things. The tuition where I talked about a 1.9% increase in tuition, that's just to the per credit tuition. When I showed the graph of the percent of a budget or whatever, that included both tuition and fees wrapped into that. But I was just discussing the tuition.
Okay. So yes, those are separate things. And then the second question from Tara is, why can't the state keep up with the cost of inflation? And how do they justify devaluing community college funding like that?
Exactly. Yeah, you know, no, I mean, there's no good answer to that. I will tell you that it's the commitment to education from the state is better than it used to be, but it's not where it needs to be. We still rank probably in the lower quarter in terms of funding per student. You know, it's complicated. I mean, the state needs revenue to support all of these different things. Oregon, as you know, has no sales tax, and that's where a lot of states really look to generate revenue to give to education. So it's complicated, and it's the past history I think that we've got, and the lack of revenue generating mechanisms by the state that kind of just filters out to all of those things that they try to support. And we are all competing with each other for a very limited amount of funding.
Yeah, I hate competing for funding.
Yeah.
Thank you, Provost Gerald. And then the last question is, it's kind of it's more of a comment than that. The question here is, and I have permission to ask it, as someone who is, again from Tara, as someone who is paying fully out of pocket and does not qualify for financial aid, I'm taking 16 credits per term. So any increase would have a pretty substantial impact on me. And I think that this is a person who is not alone in experiencing that. And so we really need to carefully, I believe that we should carefully weigh that.
Yeah, most definitely. First, Tara, great job taking 16 credits a term. I mean, that's what we need to do in order to get you in and through and on to what's next for you. So I commend you for that. I know that's not something that everybody has the ability or means to do right away, and I am aware of the impact. So I mean, I think our goal would be to just try to make sure that, you know, we look at all of the strategies that we have, and we don't pass this on lightly to students by any means. And we do look at what are things that we can do that would minimize that impact. I mean, we clearly can't pass the entire amount off to students, and it's not the right thing to do. But at the same time, you know, we have to balance that with the operation we have and figuring out ways to cut expenses as well. And also, I encourage you, lobby your state representatives that they should really invest in education, because they're investing not just in your future, but the future of the state by doing that. And it's really important to do that. Short-sighted otherwise, if you ask me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for those questions. We would love to have more. We have about 20 minutes left and available. So I have some other pieces of information that you may want to have, and I'll get to those in a minute. But I wanted to call on Don Whiting at this moment because there was a question that came up about fees. And so Don, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the way that fees work, because I'm not sure, but I think that one of the biggest thing that students call us about is what is going on with the fees.
Sure. I'm happy to try to address that. So the first thing I would want to do is call your attention to one of the Enrollment Services webpage, which I'll put in the chat here when I'm sort of done talking, because I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So if you're ever curious about what your fees are going to, the college does a pretty good job of sort of putting that information out there and trying to explain where fees are allocated and what those fees are. Of course, there are certain programs that also have fees associated with them, and those can change year over year. A lot of our departments this year, due to the pandemic, have made some significant reductions to fees. And so you may have seen those as credits on your account for some of those departments where their services, as they normally would have been held, are unable to. And so they've given that money back to the student in the way of fees. But related to sort of what we call our mandatory fees, or students fees that all students pay, we do have an emergency fee that the college instituted just a couple of terms ago, and it is a $5 per credit hour fee. There's also a technology fee that helps pay for technology used in smart classrooms and online courses. Transportation fee, which of course has been removed for some terms and then reduced for this current winter term. And the way that these fees are assessed for your accounts is really dependent on the modality of the course that you're taking. And so whether that's an online or what we now refer to as a remote, or maybe a distance course. So our online courses are structured very differently from what our traditional classroom courses are. And you'll see that reflected in your schedule. So as you go to choose courses, or as you look at your schedule and you see that there's an online course, there's going to be certain fees that are assessed for online learning specifically. And then in addition to that, you might see courses that say meet virtual or no time, no room. And those are courses that would have normally met on campus, but due to our restrictions of the pandemic, are no longer able to do that, or are not able to do that during this time. So they are either meeting virtually, meaning there might be a Zoom time or a time that you'll meet with your instructor and the rest of your class, or a no time, no room, meaning that it's just fully just sort of a remote class, and the learning happens at your convenience and your time. So those courses are assessed fees differently, and as they would have been if those classes were still meeting on campus. I know that feels a little bit complicated just because it feels like most of our courses are remote right now, but just to give you some information about that and how they're being assessed. If you do have questions, you are welcome to contact our Enrollment Services Department. They're very well aware of how this is addressed. They are at extension 3100, and please feel free to give us a call. Again, I'll put that website in the chat, and if there are questions about that, I'm happy to answer them.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so I want to kind of talk about, well, I'm going to call on, just so you're ready, Don Barth, I'm going to call on you in about a minute and a half. But for the moment, I want to talk about stress. Are y'all stressed? Because I'm stressed. And I think everybody has been stressed. Instead of having a morning commute, I have 20 minutes on either end of my day to work more. So it's fine. It's you know, I love this job and I love what I'm doing. But probably I'm not, you know, it's pretty super common that we're all a lot more stressed out than we used to be. So let's talk about that for a minute. If you have something like an emergency, like you're about to have the lights turned off in your house, or you're about to be evicted, or you're having difficulty and you need some emergency funding, I'm putting a link to Student Life into the chat right now. And if you go down there, it's called Student Life and Leadership Development. But if you scroll down, there's a big button that says Student Emergency Fund. The Student Emergency Fund is a way to access about $300 on an emergency basis, and it's a one-time availability. I'd like to give a shout out to our partners over in Lane Community College Foundation, who are the ones who do fundraising to be able to pay for this. And so that's it's an amazing fund. And if you are in one of those situations where it's like, this is about, I mean, the rubber is about to meet the road, and that means something really grave for us, please get a hold of them. Another thing that happens with stress is that sometimes we have crises. So I would like to point you to two different resources to help. Now, the first one is the Mental Health and Wellness Center. The Mental Health and Wellness Center has really awesome resources to help us out. So there's drug and alcohol prevention. There are student resources like Talk Campus, which is a peer-to-peer dialogue that you can engage in with your peers across the United States. You can, there are community supports available there. And they can really help you, and especially if you are in crisis, you or a student that you know, you're very worried that something bad is going to happen, get a hold of them. The second one that I'm going to point you to is the what's called the Counseling Center. So the Counseling Center can help you with our daily stressors, like you just had a breakup, or you might fail this class, or you worry that you're not going to fail, that you're going to fail all of your classes, or things are just not going well and you need someone to talk to, or maybe you need a dream changer. We have career counseling available as well. So please get a hold of these two groups as appropriate, and if you need to take advantage of our mental health resources as well. Okay, so next, I'm going to ask Don Barth a couple of questions, things that I would want to know if I was a student. So Don, the first question that I would ask is, what can we do on campus right now? What's available? What are we doing?
Yeah, so the cool thing about this is when Mindy asked me this question, it made me actually go and look, so I can give you the best way for you to find this answer too, which is pretty awesome. So if you go to our main LCC webpage, lanecc.edu, there's a banner across the top of the page that talks about COVID-19, a big yellow banner. If you click on that and look on the left side of the page, the first thing that's over there says college services availability. So the thing that's really awesome about that is you can actually scroll through here. So if you want to know, is there someplace I can go on campus? Like my Wi-Fi just crashed at home and I can't go get a new router, and I have this test, I have this deadline. What are some of the things that are available to me? So one thing that is available is that we do have a computer lab that is open in Building 4, room 250, from noon to 4, Monday through Friday. So that is it's set up with social distance, so it is safe. It is limited in how many people can be there at a time, so you want to make sure that you plan some extra time just in case it is full. But that is a space where you can go in and use a computer lab. What if I have, excuse me, a laptop and I just need a space where I can work? We have put Wi-Fi boosters out in the parking lot, lot B. So I have worked at the college for over 20 years and I still get mixed up about what the parking lots are as far as the letters. But the one I never get wrong is lot B. And the reason I never get it wrong is because it's where the bus comes. So B is for bus, that is lot B. So that's also where those solar panels are. So if you came out here and you needed a place just to have internet access, you don't even need to get out of your car. You can come out to lot B for bus over by those solar panels and know that there is a Wi-Fi booster out there and you can access the LCC Wi-Fi from right there in the parking lot and you can stay in your car. So that is a great option. And I know I have personally used that for a Zoom meeting in the past. So it is an option that can be used and it works really, really well. Some other things that are on there that people are asking, what about the bookstore? What if I need to get something? So the bookstore, if I look at this list, it's open on Monday and Tuesday from 9 to 4 and Wednesday through Friday from 10 to 5. And you can also have your books shipped to you. That is an option if you don't want to come in. So that's a great service. What about the library? Did you know the library has the ability for you to check out books, and they have a pickup location? It's in the bottom floor of Building 4. They will have it all ready for you. You come in and check in. They'll have it in a easy contact, give you your books and you can leave. And when you need to return them, there's actually a drop box, just like a big email box right out front near the clock tower where you can drive through and drop off your books to return them. So there are so many things. I don't want to read this whole list to you, but please look at our website because there's a great list of there. It's very comprehensive of the things that you can still do on campus to take care of your needs. And if there are other things that you need, make sure that you let us know, because we are trying to do the best that we can to still help you to be successful. Did you have anything else specific, Mindy?
Gosh, I think that kind of covers it. Yeah, I thank you very much, Dawn. I appreciate
Great.
it.
Thanks.
One other resource that you may or may not know of, and I'm sure that you do because we've been pushing it pretty hard, is that if you need a computer and you don't have a computer to be successful, you can check one out from the shed. And so just so that you know that we have Chromebooks and we have laptops both available for you to check out. And I think that that's a really interesting, good thing. And you don't have to prove that you need it. You can just fill out the paperwork and they'll do the best they can to get you the appropriate technology. So Chromebooks are great, but they don't always have the right software on them. Okay, so I also want to acknowledge Jean Gipple, thank you, from the Mental Health and Wellness Center is here. And she wants to remind us that mental health and wellness also offers individual and group counseling. Thank you, Jean, so much. The Mental Health and Wellness Center is still new, and I'm getting used to introducing them. So thank you for your kind prompt on that. I appreciate it. The next thing that I want to go to is Tara Shope. Tara says, and this is talking again about fees versus tuition versus life is really expensive, especially when you're a college student. And Tara says, my fees this term are almost $400 this term. It seems really excessive, especially since all classes are online. It's hard to stomach a technology fee of $176. So I'm going to look right at Paul Gerald. Can you address that with us?
Yeah, it is fees are expensive, and there are a variety of fees that are charged. And I would say, especially now, with moving, courses remote and online and the expenses associated with that, I mean, that's what some of those fees are going to. So I hear students when they say fees are expensive. We don't raise them or impose them lightly, and we really do hope that they are returning something for the students that make their experience here better. So that's our true goal. I appreciate continuing to hear. I don't like raising fees or tuition, and just trying to balance it with the cost of doing business. So I hear you.
Okay, thank you, Provost Gerald. I appreciate it. The other thing that it's not a fun thing to talk about, but I get to do all the uncomfortable stuff as well. But if you have a concern, if something is not right in your world, if there is an incident that has occurred and you are a student or you observe this of the student, I'm going to put a link in here. It's our Students of Concern reporting. And if you go to the page, you'll see that you can report an incident, gender discrimination or harassment. You can review the student code of conduct. And then there are a couple of ways to refer and resources and tips for students and faculty. And I just want you to know that there are resources available to you, and we would be happy to address that with and for you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask our panelists. We have about 5 minutes left. Is there anything else that you would like to say? Oh, wait, hang on just a second. Silas Miller has a comment. Silas, I can't agree with you more. Silas says, I wish they'd put an R between the F and the E in the word fee. So free. I do too. Okay, so panelists, do you have anything else, any other tips or ideas or things you'd like to say to our audience today? Dawn?
Yeah, I think Amber covered it in her sort of opening comments, but just a friendly reminder that registration's open and we're here to help. So again, in enrollment services, give us a call if you're just struggling with that registration system and you just need a little bit of extra assistance. We are here and we are ready to help you.
Thank you. Provost Jarrell?
Yeah, I was going to, Dawn kind of hit it, and that's asking for help. I think that, I remember as a student, and college was a very unfamiliar world to me, feeling intimidated to ask questions. And I think my experience would have been a lot better had I asked questions when I got them. And so there are a lot of people that want to help. I know tuition and fees are one stressor to you, but I also know that there are many others. So don't hesitate to ask for help, for assistance. We have a lot of people that are eager and feel great pride in helping you. So I'm one of them. Mindy's one of them. Everybody on this call is one of them. So don't hesitate to reach out and let us help you, and know that there's a lot of help there, both learning remotely and the transition, and also trying to deal with other stressors that come along with learning remotely and living with this pandemic. So let us help.
All right, thank you. And President Amber Coleman, any parting words for our participants?
Thank you, Mindy. No, just thank you all for being here. And I really look forward to hearing from some students that are interested in being involved with student government. I would really love to see some students show up to some of our Senate meetings or send us some emails. We're always here to help. And even if you're not interested in being part of the student government, let us know if you have anything that we can help you with, any projects or clubs or anything. We're here to help. So thank you.
And just remember that when I need to figure out what students are doing, or I need some information and I would like to refer to students, a lot of times what I do is get a hold of student government. The voices that come out of there are really incredibly important, and they're really, really helpful. Well, as we close down today, I'd like to say thank you very much for coming and attending. Thank you to our panelists, and especially thank you to Randy and Terry Holloway, and Bliss Newton, and for our captioner, who I didn't mention before. All right, you guys go out there, make sure you drink some water. If you haven't drank any water today, coffee is not the same. Get a little exercise. We're basically houseplants with complicated emotions. Be safe, friends, and we will talk to you later.